Ladies and gentlemen, I want to begin today by addressing something that all of us have felt at one point or another, something we've probably wished to avoid or run away from our feelings of weakness. What I'm going to challenge us to think about today is not how to suppress or reject these feelings, but to completely reframe how we understand what weak feelings are. You see, for far too long, we've been taught that certain emotions make us vulnerable, fragile, or weak. We live in a society that has set up this false dichotomy between strength and weakness, and we're constantly being told that to be strong means to push down and kill any feelings that seem fragile, insecure, or vulnerable. But I ask you, what if our so-called weak feelings are the very source of our deepest strength? What if the process of confronting them is where true courage lies? I'm not here to tell you to ignore or destroy your emotions. In fact, quite the opposite. Today, I want us to explore how these very feelings, the ones we label as weak, might be the doorways to understanding ourselves better, connecting with others more deeply, and living fuller lives. When we talk about weakness, what comes to mind? Maybe it's fear, maybe doubt, maybe insecurity. It's the sensation of not being enough. Maybe it's that anxious voice that tells you, you're going to fail, you're not good enough, or you don't deserve to be happy. I think we've all had moments where we feel these things intensely, and we're often told either directly or indirectly that feeling this way makes us less than others. We are made to believe that if we experience fear, doubt, or sadness, we are broken in some way. We're told that these feelings need to be hidden, killed, or shoved aside in favor of the more strong emotions like confidence, power, and certainty. But the truth is, our feelings of vulnerability are not indicators of weakness. They're indicators of our humanity. What we label as weak is often just the natural response to difficult, complex, or uncertain circumstances. Fear, doubt, and even sadness serve a purpose. They alert us to potential danger, change, or loss. They help us understand when something is important to us. They remind us that we care, that we are alive, and that we are engaged with the world around us. So the question isn't how do we kill these feelings, but rather how do we embrace them without letting them control us? If we spend our lives running from or suppressing the emotions we fear make us weak, we will never have the chance to understand their message. And in that suppression, we lose something essential, the opportunity to grow. Here's the thing, strength isn't about the absence of difficult feelings. Strength is about our capacity to face them. It's about the ability to stand in the discomfort of uncertainty, to experience fear without being paralyzed by it, and to embrace doubt without letting it dictate our actions. True strength, real courage, is not found in the elimination of emotions we deem weak. It's found in the ability to acknowledge those emotions, to sit with them, to understand their roots, and then to decide how to move forward from a place of clarity and intention. We are often taught that emotions like fear, doubt, or insecurity are enemies to be vanquished. But what if these feelings are actually messengers? What if, instead of trying to kill these emotions, we could learn from them? What if we could use them as tools to better understand ourselves, to dig deeper into what really matters to us? When we allow ourselves to experience these emotions, to sit with the discomfort and explore what they are trying to tell us, we open ourselves up to the possibility of growth. We give ourselves permission to be imperfect, to make mistakes, and to be human. And in doing so, we become stronger not because we have eliminated all feelings of vulnerability, but because we have learned to navigate them with grace and resilience. Let's talk about vulnerability for a moment, because vulnerability is often seen as the epitome of weakness. We are taught to shield ourselves, to protect our hearts from being hurt, and to never show others the parts of ourselves that we feel are flawed or broken. But vulnerability is not weakness. It is the birthplace of connection, creativity, and courage. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we open the door to authentic relationships both with others and with ourselves. Vulnerability is the willingness to show up, to be seen, and to risk failure or rejection, knowing that our worth is not determined by the outcome. It is the strength to say, here I am in all my imperfection, and I'm still worthy of love and belonging. Resilience, on the other hand, is the ability to bounce back from adversity, to get up after we fall, and to continue moving forward in the face of setbacks. But resilience doesn't mean we don't feel the pain of falling. It doesn't mean we are immune to the sting of failure. Resilience is not about being unbreakable. It's about being able to mend ourselves when we break. And here's the truth: vulnerability and resilience are not opposites. They are partners. It is through vulnerability that we learn resilience. It is by allowing ourselves to feel deeply, to experience the full range of emotions, that we build the capacity to recover when things go wrong. If we never allow ourselves to feel sadness, how can we understand joy? If we never experience fear, how can we know what it means to be brave? Many of us, when faced with feelings of fear, doubt, or insecurity, put on emotional armor. We try to protect ourselves by shutting down, by avoiding vulnerability, and by pretending that we are unaffected. But this emotional armor comes at a cost. When we shut ourselves off from our so-called weak feelings, we also shut ourselves off from the possibility of growth, connection, and joy. Emotional armor might keep us safe from pain in the short term, but it also keeps us from living fully. It prevents us from being present in our own lives. It keeps us stuck in a cycle of fear and avoidance, rather than allowing us to engage with the world in a meaningful way. When we are constantly guarding ourselves against feelings of vulnerability, we miss out on the opportunity to connect with others on a deep level. We miss the chance to experience real intimacy, to form authentic relationships, and to create meaningful change in our lives. The cost of emotional armor is high. It keeps us from taking risks, from pursuing our dreams, and from stepping into our true potential. It keeps us small, confined to the safety of what we know, rather than allowing us to explore the vastness of what could be. If we want to kill anything, let it be the belief that we need to kill our feelings to be strong. Instead, we need to lean into the discomfort of our emotions. We need to give ourselves permission to feel, to experience the full range of human emotions without judgment or shame. This doesn't mean that we let our emotions run our lives. It doesn't mean that we wallow in self-pity or allow fear to paralyze us. But it does mean that we acknowledge our emotions, that we allow ourselves to feel them fully, and that we use them as a guide to help us understand what we need. Leaning into discomfort is not easy. It requires courage. It requires the willingness to sit with feelings that are uncomfortable, messy, and sometimes overwhelming. But it is in this discomfort that we find growth. It is in this discomfort that we learn who we really are and what we are truly capable of. One of the most common ways that we avoid our weak feelings is through numbing. We numb our feelings with food, with alcohol, with work, with distractions. We do anything we can to avoid feeling the discomfort of fear, doubt, or insecurity. But numbing our emotions doesn't make them go away. It just dulls them temporarily. And when we numb our emotions, we also numb our ability to experience joy, connection, and fulfillment. The problem with numbing is that it's a short-term solution that creates long-term problems. When we numb our feelings, we're not addressing the underlying issues that are causing those feelings in the first place. We're just putting a Band-Aid on a wound that needs deeper healing. Numbing might provide temporary relief, but it prevents us from doing the work we need to do to truly heal and grow. It keeps us stuck in a cycle of avoidance, where we never confront the real issues that are holding us back. If we want to truly kill the hold that weak feelings have over us, we need to practice self-compassion. Too often, when we experience feelings of fear, doubt, or insecurity, we are quick to judge ourselves. We tell ourselves that we shouldn't feel this way, that we should be stronger, more confident, more capable. But self-judgment only exacerbates our feelings of weakness. It makes us feel even more isolated and unworthy. If we want to build resilience, If we want to navigate our emotions with grace and strength, we need to treat ourselves with kindness. Self-compassion is the practice of acknowledging our feelings without judgment. It's the ability to say, it's okay to feel this way. It's human to feel fear, doubt, or sadness. And these feelings don't make me weak, they make me real. When we practice self-compassion, we allow ourselves the space to feel without falling into the trap of shame or self-blame. We give ourselves permission to be imperfect, to struggle, and to grow. But self-compassion isn't just about being kind to ourselves when we're in emotional pain. It's also about recognizing our common humanity. When we experience difficult emotions, we often feel like we're the only ones who are struggling. We look around at others and think everyone else seems to have it all together. Why can't I? But the truth is, everyone struggles. Everyone experiences fear, doubt, and insecurity. No one is immune to the challenges of life. And when we remember that, we can approach ourselves with more compassion and less judgment. One of the biggest reasons we try to kill our weak feelings is because of perfectionism. We've been conditioned to believe that we need to be perfect in order to be worthy, perfectly confident, perfectly competent, perfectly competent, perfectly in control. And when we fall short of that ideal, we feel like we've failed, we feel weak. So we try to push away any feelings that don't align with that image of perfection. But perfectionism is a trap. It's an unattainable standard that leaves us feeling exhausted, frustrated, and disconnected from ourselves. Life is messy. Emotions are messy. And trying to fit our messy, imperfect selves into a mold of perfection only leads to more pain. When we let go of perfectionism, we make room for growth. We make room for vulnerability, for mistakes, and for learning. We make room for our weak feelings to exist without shame, knowing that they are part of what makes us human. And in doing so, we create space for real connection both with ourselves and with others. If we're going to talk about weak feelings, we need to talk about shame. Shame is one of the most powerful and destructive emotions we can experience, and it's often at the root of why we feel weak in the first place. Shame tells us that we're not enough, that our flaws, our mistakes, and our insecurities make us unworthy of love and belonging. It's that voice in our heads that says, if people really knew you, they wouldn't accept you. Shame thrives in silence. It grows in the dark, feeding off of our fears that we are somehow broken or unworthy. And when we feel shame, we often withdraw from others. We hide our vulnerabilities because we believe that showing them will only lead to rejection. But the antidote to shame is connection. When we bring our shame into the light, when we share our struggles, our fears, and our insecurities with others, we break its hold on us. We realize that we are not alone, that others have felt the same way, and that our worth is not defined by our imperfections. Breaking the cycle of shame requires courage. It requires the willingness to be vulnerable, to share the parts of ourselves that we've been taught to hide. But in doing so, we not only free ourselves from the grip of shame, but we also create the opportunity for deeper connection and belonging. One of the biggest reasons we avoid our weak feelings is because we fear rejection. We fear that if we show others our vulnerability, if we reveal our fear, our doubt, or our insecurity, they will reject us. They will see us as weak, unworthy, or unlovable. This fear is deeply ingrained in us, and it stems from our fundamental need for connection. As human beings, we are wired for connection. We need to feel seen, heard, and valued by others in order to thrive. And so we go to great lengths to protect ourselves from the possibility of rejection. We build walls, put on masks, and hide the parts of ourselves that we believe will be judged. But here's the thing, the very act of hiding our vulnerability is what keeps us disconnected. When we show up inauthentically, when we try to project an image of perfection or strength that doesn't align with how we really feel, we create distance between ourselves and others. We might avoid rejection, but we also miss out on the opportunity for real, meaningful connection. The paradox is that the more we fear rejection, the more likely we are to experience it. When we hide our true selves, we attract shallow, superficial relationships that are built on a foundation of fear and insecurity. But when we embrace our vulnerability, when we allow ourselves to be seen as we truly are, we create the space for deeper, more authentic relationships. Another reason we struggle with our weak feelings is because they often arise in moments of change or uncertainty. As human beings, we crave stability and predictability. We want to know what's going to happen next, and we want to feel in control of our lives. But life is inherently unpredictable. Change is a constant, and uncertainty is a given. Our fear of change often manifests as feelings of weakness. When we face the unknown, we feel vulnerable, we don't know what's going to happen, and that uncertainty can be terrifying. But here's the truth: resisting change doesn't make us stronger. In fact, it often makes us more fragile. The more we try to cling to stability and control, the more we set ourselves up for disappointment when things inevitably change. Embracing impermanence means accepting that life is constantly evolving. It means acknowledging that we are not in control of everything, and that's okay. It means learning to ride the waves of uncertainty with grace, rather than fighting against them. When we embrace impermanence, we develop a sense of resilience that allows us to adapt to whatever comes our way. We stop seeing change as a threat, and instead, we begin to see it as an opportunity for growth and transformation. One of the hardest things to do when we're feeling weak is to let go of control. We've been taught that control equals strength, that if we can just keep everything in order, we'll be safe. But control is an illusion. No matter how hard we try, we can't control everything in our lives. We can't control other people. We can't control the future, and we can't control the outcome of every situation. The more we try to control, the more we feel overwhelmed, anxious, and disconnected from ourselves. And the more we cling to control, the more we distance ourselves from the freedom that comes with surrender. Surrendering control doesn't mean giving up or becoming passive. It doesn't mean that we stop caring about our lives or our goals. It means that we let go of the need to dictate every outcome. It means that we trust ourselves to handle whatever comes our way, even if it's not what we expected. Surrendering control requires courage because it means embracing uncertainty. It means accepting that we don't have all the answers and that things won't always go according to plan. But in that surrender, we find a deeper sense of peace. We stop wasting energy on trying to control the uncontrollable, and we start focusing on what we can actually influence: our attitudes, our actions, and our responses. Emotional flexibility is the ability to adapt to changing circumstances and emotions without getting stuck in rigid patterns of thinking or feeling. It's the ability to experience a range of emotions, both positive and negative, without being defined by any one of them. Emotional flexibility means being able to navigate the ups and downs of life with resilience, grace, and openness. When we're emotionally flexible, we don't get stuck in the idea that certain emotions are good and others are bad. Instead, we recognize that all emotions have value. Even the emotions we label as weak: fear, doubt, sadness, have something to teach us. Emotional flexibility allows us to move through our emotions rather than getting stuck in them. It allows us to experience fear without being consumed by it, to feel sadness without drowning in it, and to acknowledge doubt without letting it dictate our actions. Developing emotional flexibility requires mindfulness. It requires the ability to observe our emotions without judgment and to respond to them with curiosity rather than reactivity. When we practice emotional flexibility, we create space for growth, for learning, and for transformation. At the heart of everything we've discussed today is self-awareness. If we want to cultivate inner strength, if we want to learn how to navigate our weak feelings with resilience and grace, we need to start by developing a deeper understanding of ourselves. Self-awareness is the ability to recognize our own patterns of thought, emotion, and behavior. It's the ability to understand why we react the way we act the way we do, what triggers our feelings of fear or insecurity, and how our past experiences shape our present reality. When we develop self-awareness, we gain the power to make conscious choices about how we respond to our emotions. Instead of being swept away by fear or doubt, we can pause, reflect, and choose a path that aligns with our values and our goals. Self-awareness is not about self-judgment. It's not about finding fault in ourselves or beating ourselves up for our imperfections. It's about understanding ourselves with compassion and curiosity. It's about recognizing that we're weak. Feelings are not something to be ashamed of, but rather opportunities for growth and self-discovery. It's important to recognize that we don't have to navigate our weak feelings alone. One of the most powerful ways to build inner strength is through connection with others. As much as we focus on our personal journeys of emotional growth, healing, and self-awareness, we are not meant to go through these challenges in isolation. Human beings are inherently social creatures, and our greatest strengths often emerge when we allow ourselves to lean on the support of others. There is a common misconception that strength is defined by self-reliance, that asking for help or sharing our vulnerabilities with others is a sign of weakness. But in reality, the opposite is true. It takes an immense amount of courage to admit that we need support, to reach out to others and say, I'm struggling, I'm scared. I don't have all the answers and I need help. When we open ourselves up to the support of others, we create space for connection, empathy, and understanding. We give others the opportunity to show up for us, to offer their own wisdom, guidance, and love. And in doing so, we realize that we are not alone in our struggles. We see that others have faced similar challenges, that they have experienced the same emotions, and that they have survived. Their stories of resilience become a source of strength for us, reminding us that we too can overcome our challenges. Being part of a community also gives us the opportunity to be of service to others. Just as we benefit from the support and wisdom of those around us, we also have the ability to offer our own support, our own empathy, and our own experiences to others. When we share our stories of struggle and growth, we remind others that they are not alone. We create a sense of belonging, a sense of shared humanity that is vital for emotional well-being. Empathy is one of the most powerful tools we have for building strength both in ourselves and in others. Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person. It's the ability to say, I see you, I hear you, I understand what you're going through because I've been there too. Empathy breaks down the walls of isolation and allows us to connect on a deep human level. When we practice empathy, we create a space where others feel safe to express their vulnerabilities. We create an environment where people don't feel judged for their weak feelings, but rather understood and supported. And when we experience empathy from others, we realize that our struggles are not something to be ashamed of. We realize that we are not alone in feeling fear, doubt, or insecurity, that these emotions are part of the shared human experience. Empathy also helps us to be more compassionate with ourselves. When we recognize that others have felt the same emotions we're feeling, we stop seeing our struggles as a personal failing. Instead, we start to understand that fear, doubt, and insecurity are normal parts of life. They are feelings that everyone experiences at some point, and they don't make us any less worthy or capable. While connection and empathy are vital for emotional well-being, it's also important to recognize the role of boundaries in maintaining our inner strength. Boundaries are the limits we set to protect our emotional, mental, and physical well-being. They define what we are willing to accept in our relationships and how we allow others to treat us. Setting boundaries is not about shutting people out or being rigid. It's about recognizing our own needs and taking responsibility for our own well-being. It's about knowing when we need space, when we need rest, and when we need to protect ourselves from situations or relationships that drain our energy or undermine our sense of self-worth. Many of us struggle with setting boundaries because we fear that doing so will lead to rejection or conflict. We worry that if we say no or ask for what we need, we will disappoint others or be seen as selfish. But the truth is, healthy boundaries are essential for building resilience and maintaining our emotional well-being. Without boundaries, we become overwhelmed, exhausted, and disconnected from ourselves. Boundaries are an act of self-respect. They allow us to prioritize our own needs without guilt or shame. They create a space where we can care for ourselves and show up in our relationships from a place of strength and authenticity. At the core of everything we've discussed today, whether it's vulnerability, resilience, connection, or boundaries, is the belief that we are worthy. We are enough, just as we are, with all of our imperfections, fears, and doubts. So often we believe that in order to be strong or worthy, we need to eliminate our weaknesses, hide our vulnerabilities, and become something more than we are. But the truth is, our worth is not contingent on our ability to be perfect or invulnerable. Our worth is inherent. It is not something we need to earn, it is something we already possess. When we believe in our own worth, we stop seeing our weak feelings as something that detracts from our value. Instead, we recognize them as part of the human experience, an experience that is rich, complex, and full of opportunities for growth. When we believe we are enough, we give ourselves permission to feel, to struggle, and to learn without shame or fear. Embracing our self-worth also allows us to show up more fully in our relationships and in our lives. When we know that we are enough, we no longer seek validation from others. We no longer need to prove our worth by being perfect or by suppressing our emotions. Instead, we can show up authentically, knowing that we are deserving of love, respect, and belonging just as we are. One of the most powerful ways to cultivate inner strength and resilience is through the practice of gratitude. Gratitude is the act of recognizing and appreciating the good in our lives, even in the midst of challenges or difficult emotions. It is a way of shifting our perspective from what is lacking or difficult to what is abundant and meaningful. When we practice gratitude, we train our minds to focus on the positive aspects of our lives rather than dwelling on what we perceive as weaknesses or failures. We begin to see that even in our moments of fear, doubt, or sadness, there is still something to be grateful for, whether it's the support of a friend, the beauty of nature, or the simple fact that we have the strength to keep moving forward. Gratitude doesn't mean ignoring our difficult emotions or pretending that everything is perfect. It's not about forcing ourselves to be positive when we're struggling. Instead, it's about acknowledging that life is complex, that we can experience both joy and pain, both gratitude and sadness at the same time. Gratitude helps us build resilience by reminding us of our capacity to endure, to find meaning in our experiences, and to appreciate the good that exists alongside the challenges. It shifts our focus from what we lack to what we have, and in doing so, it helps us cultivate a sense of abundance and strength. As we move forward on this journey of emotional growth and resilience, it's important to remember that there is no final destination. There is no point at which we will have killed all of our weak feelings or reached a state of perfect strength. Life is an ongoing process of self-discovery, and each experience, each emotion, is an opportunity to learn more about ourselves and to grow. The journey of self-discovery requires a willingness to embrace the unknown. It requires the courage to explore the parts of ourselves that we may have been avoiding, the fears, the doubts, the insecurities that we've labeled as weaknesses. But in doing so, we discover new strengths, new insights, and new possibilities for growth. Self-discovery is not about becoming someone else or achieving some ideal version of ourselves. It's about uncovering who we truly are beneath the layers of fear, shame, and self-doubt. It's about recognizing our own inherent worth and embracing the fullness of our humanity with all of its complexities and contradictions. As we continue on this path, let us remember that the goal is not to eliminate our so-called weak feelings, but to embrace them as part of the rich tapestry of our emotional experience. Let us approach ourselves with compassion, curiosity, and a deep sense of gratitude for the opportunity to learn and grow. As we reflect on everything we've discussed, I want to leave you with one final thought. What if we stopped seeing our weak feelings as enemies to be destroyed, and instead began to see them as allies in our journey toward growth and self-discovery? Our emotions are not obstacles to be overcome. They are guides that point us toward what matters most to us. They are messengers that alert us to our deepest desires, our core values, and our greatest vulnerabilities. Rather than trying to kill our weak feelings, what if we listened to them? What if we allowed them to teach us about ourselves, to show us where we need to grow, and to help us become more compassionate, resilient, and courageous? When we shift our perspective in this way, we stop seeing our emotions as something to fear or suppress. We begin to understand that our feelings, no matter how uncomfortable or vulnerable, are an essential part of what it means to be human. And in embracing our full emotional experience, we find a deeper, more authentic form of strength. If we are to embrace our full emotional experience and recognize the role of our so-called weak feelings in our journey of growth, we must also redefine what we mean by strength. Strength, as we've been taught to understand it, is often about control, stoicism, and the absence of vulnerability. It's about being tough, impervious to pain, and always holding it together. But real strength, emotional courage, is something far deeper. Emotional courage is the willingness to sit with discomfort, to acknowledge our fears, and to lean into our vulnerabilities without shutting down or running away. It's about showing up fully even when we feel uncertain, scared, or exposed. Emotional courage requires us to let go of the need for certainty, the need for perfection, and the need to protect ourselves from every possible hurt. Emotional courage is about daring to be real. It's about the willingness to feel deeply, to care deeply, and to risk being hurt in the process. It's the recognition that our vulnerability is not a weakness, but a profound strength that connects us to others and to ourselves. When we cultivate emotional courage, we give ourselves permission to feel everything, to experience joy, sadness, love, fear, and everything in between. We stop compartmentalizing our emotions, labeling some as strong and others as weak. Instead, we embrace the full spectrum of our emotional lives, knowing that each feeling has its place and its purpose. Vulnerability is often seen as a form of weakness, especially in cultures that prioritize toughness and emotional control. We are taught to hide our vulnerabilities, to protect ourselves from being hurt, and to project an image of strength at all times. But what if vulnerability is not a weakness at all? What if, in fact, it is one of our greatest sources of power? When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we open the door to authenticity. We stop pretending to be something we're not, and we show up as our true selves, flaws and all. Vulnerability is the key to deep, meaningful connections with others, because it allows us to be seen for who we really are, not for the mask we wear to hide our insecurities. Vulnerability is also the birthplace of creativity, innovation, and change. When we are willing to take risks, to put ourselves out there, and to embrace the uncertainty of not knowing how things will turn out, we create the space for new possibilities. Without vulnerability, there can be no growth, no learning, and no true connection. But vulnerability is not easy. It requires us to face the discomfort of being exposed, to sit with the fear of rejection, and to accept that we cannot control the outcome of every situation. It requires us to let go of the illusion of control and embrace the messy, unpredictable nature of life. The gift of vulnerability is that it allows us to live more fully and authentically. It gives us the freedom to express our true selves, to connect with others on a deeper level, and to experience the richness of life in all its complexity. If vulnerability is the key to authenticity, resilience is the key to navigating the inevitable challenges that come with it. Resilience is not about never feeling fear or doubt. It's about the ability to bounce back when things don't go as planned. It's about the capacity to recover from setbacks, to learn from our experiences, and to keep moving forward, even in the face of adversity. Resilience doesn't mean that we don't feel pain or sadness. It means that we have the tools to cope with those emotions and the strength to persevere through difficult times. It's the ability to hold space for our feelings, to acknowledge them without being overwhelmed by them, and to find meaning in our struggles. Building resilience is a lifelong process. It's not something we achieve overnight, nor is it something that comes naturally to everyone. But resilience can be cultivated through intentional practices such as mindfulness, self-compassion, and connection with others. Mindfulness helps us stay present in the moment rather than getting caught up in worries about the future or regrets about the past. It allows us to observe our emotions without judgment, to sit with our discomfort without trying to numb it or push it away. Self-compassion helps us treat ourselves with kindness when we're struggling. It reminds us that we are human, that it's okay to feel scared or uncertain, and that we don't need to be perfect in order to be worthy of love and belonging. Connection with others provides us with the support we need to navigate difficult times. When we reach out to friends, family, or community, we remind ourselves that we are not alone, that others have faced similar challenges, and that we have the strength to get through it together. Resilience is not about avoiding pain or pretending that everything is okay. It's about facing life's challenges with courage, grace, and the knowledge that we have the inner resources to overcome them. Trust is a fundamental element of emotional courage and resilience. Trusting ourselves means having confidence in our ability to handle whatever life throws our way. It means knowing that even when we feel scared or uncertain, we have the strength and the resources to navigate our emotions and make decisions that are in alignment with our values. Trusting ourselves also means trusting our emotions. So often we are taught to distrust our feelings, to see them as irrational or problematic. But our emotions are not something to be feared or suppressed. They are important signals that provide us with valuable information about our needs, desires, and boundaries. When we learn to trust our emotions, we can use them as guides to help us navigate our relationships, make decisions, and live in alignment with our true selves. Trusting others is equally important. It means allowing ourselves to be vulnerable in our relationships, to rely on the support and guidance of those around us, and to believe that we are worthy of love, respect, and care. Trusting others does not mean that we expect them to be perfect or never let us down. It means that we have faith in their intentions, their humanity, and their capacity for growth. Trust is built over time through consistent actions, communication, and a willingness to be vulnerable. It requires us to let go of the need for control, to embrace uncertainty, and to believe in the goodness of ourselves and others. Trust is the foundation of all healthy relationships, and it is essential for cultivating emotional courage and resilience. In moments of deep emotional struggle, when our fears, doubts, and insecurities feel overwhelming, it can be easy to lose sight of hope. Hope is the belief that, even in the midst of darkness, there is the possibility of light. It is the belief that our current circumstances do not define our future, and that there is always the potential for change, growth, and healing. Hope is not about denying the reality of our challenges or pretending that everything is fine when it's not. It's about recognizing that even when we are in pain, there is the possibility of a better future. Hope gives us the strength to keep moving forward, even when the path ahead is unclear. It reminds us that our struggles are not permanent and that we have the power to create positive change in our lives. Cultivating hope requires us to focus on possibility rather than limitation. It means shifting our perspective from what we cannot do to what we can do, from what we have lost to what we still have. Hope is nourished by gratitude, by connection, and by a deep belief in our own resilience. When we practice hope, we give ourselves permission to dream, to imagine a future that is different from our present, and to take action toward making that future a reality. Hope is not passive, it is active, requiring us to engage with life, to take risks, and to believe in our own capacity for growth and transformation. At the heart of emotional courage, resilience, and hope is self-acceptance. Self-acceptance is the radical act of embracing ourselves fully, with all of our imperfections, fears, and doubts. It's the recognition that we are worthy of love and belonging, not despite our vulnerabilities, but because of them. Self-acceptance does not mean that we stop striving for growth or that we ignore our need for improvement. Rather, it means that we approach ourselves with kindness and compassion, even as we work toward becoming the best versions of ourselves. It means that we stop measuring our worth by external standards of success, perfection, or strength, and instead focus on the inherent value of who we are as human beings. When we accept ourselves fully, we free ourselves from the constant pressure to prove our worth or to hide our vulnerabilities. We give ourselves permission to show up authentically, to take risks, and to be seen as we truly are. Self-acceptance is not about settling for less. It's about recognizing that we are already enough, just as we are. Self-acceptance is the foundation of emotional well-being. It allows us to cultivate resilience, to build meaningful connections with others, and to navigate life's challenges with grace and courage. When we accept ourselves, we stop fighting against our emotions and begin to see them as valuable allies in our journey of growth and self-discovery. And so as we continue on this journey of embracing our weak feelings and discovering the power of emotional courage, let us remember that the path is not linear. There will be moments when we feel strong and capable, and there will be moments when we feel scared, uncertain, and vulnerable. But in each of these moments, we have the opportunity to learn, to grow, and to connect more deeply with ourselves and with others. This journey is not about perfection, it's about progress. It's about showing up day after day with the courage to be real, the resilience to bounce back, and the hope that no matter what challenges we face, we have the strength to overcome them. Let us move forward with the understanding that our weak feelings are not something to be feared or eliminated. They are part of the rich tapestry of our emotional experience, and they hold within them the seeds of our greatest growth. Thank you. Thank you